Hey everyone, James McBride here. Let's talk a little bit about how the cybersecurity field is split up. Now, there is different ways to look at this. For instance, white hat, black hat, gray hat, ethical hacker, just a standard hacker, on and on and on. However, when you go out and get a job, you will basically be divided into one of three teams. And those teams are red team, blue team, or purple team. Now, colors of teams goes back to the military, but within computer realm of things, historically, you're going back to Halo and the fact that you could have this versus that combat play, and there was red team and blue team. And then it went beyond that. There was lots of different colors if you were fighting a lot of different teams. What we're focused on here is legitimate jobs. So we're not talking about, again, white hat, black hat, and the kinds of hats you wear. We're talking about the team you're on. So red team is going to focus on attack, penetration testing. That's really where that comes in. If you become a pen tester, then you're on red team. If you are defensive, you're not on the attack, you're defensive, then you're on blue team and keeping things safe. And then a combination of red and blue is purple. And so if you're on purple team, you're doing a little bit of both. But in reality, the way this little section of cybersecurity is evolving is it's really more of a management level kind of style. So you're analyzing the information that's coming from red team and blue team, and then trying to push forward some safety agenda that's happening. That seems to be how that is evolving. So let's take a look. Lots of information on blue team, and this actually breaks down what blue team is responsible for. So you can pause it and you can take a look at all these different areas of blue team. Basically, what blue team is they're responsible for securing everything and defending the network, defending the computer system, defending the database system. They're responsible for all of it. So blue team activities are where most of the work is because you're in this defensive nature and you have to handle all of these individual areas. So huge, you may be dropped into a specific portion. For instance, a lot of people in their first job will be in charge of system hardening, which is making sure all of the PCs are patched and that there's no services running on that PC that shouldn't be running. And that's endpoint. So when they talk about endpoint protection, that's the end point. And they use that to describe anything that's at the end. So it could be your phone, or it could be your PC, or it could be a tablet, whatever's at the end. So this is huge. And you could start out in any portion of this and then end up responsible for all of it, right? You could end up doing a lot of different things. Compliance becomes a big part of that. Are we complying with whatever the government has said, and so on? And then of course monitoring. So a SOC analyst is basically a security analyst is basically a person that's sitting there watching a dashboard, a computer dashboard that's monitoring and looking at traffic, and it's looking at tons of stuff. And then if a flag comes up like, hey, you need to worry about this, then they'll look at it and figure out what to do. And so that's blue team. Red team, that's a smaller, more focused area. You are dealing with penetration testing, scanning for vulnerabilities, social engineering attacks, threat intelligence, which is often given to you from some RSS feed that you're using or website that you go to, that kind of thing. And in larger organizations or situations, developing a tool set that's going to keep your certain technology safe. And of course, exploitation. You're actively testing a system to see if you can exploit it. That's what red team does. It is a smaller portion of the actual jobs out there. Red team, because it is so detailed, an ethical hacker, that class that you take is really red team focused. And the reasons for that particular class is because almost everything we do is blue team. So you go through security, you go through CCT1 and CCT2. So you got three classes, and those classes really focus on blue team activities. And so then you get into ethical hacker, and that's two classes that focus on red team activities. So you can really, honestly, if you want to go into red team, right, you see the interest at that point. You take that class and you're like, wow, this is really interesting, and you want to go that direction. But on top of that, you also truly understand as a blue team member when you go out and work someplace what can be done if somebody gets on your network, and you really realize that. A lot of blue team activities out there, the blue team people have never gone through a class like ethical hacker, like you will. And so they're reading about it. They're reading about what you need to do, and they don't really understand totally why. So they're reading, oh, make sure that you're using this protocol, the SNMP is version 2 point whatever or 3. And they go, oh, well, because it's more secure. They'll give you like a little brief on it, right? This is SNMP and this one is encrypted. And so there you go. But it doesn't go much beyond that. In ethical hacker, right, you're actually saying this is what I can pull out of SNMP. This is what I can actually see in it. This is what I can see in this version and this version. These are the tools I use to actually hack that. And in that way, even if you don't go into red team that you see on the screen, you end up knowing, no, I know if somebody perpetrates a phishing attack on James McBride on his PC and gains access on his computer, this is what really can happen. And I think that that makes a difference in people's mindsets, that you will understand better how dangerous not doing what you need to do is. And that even if you are doing everything you need to do, you really still need to monitor and log because there's still issues there. So that's two reasons, right? That's why I have red team activities in ethical hacker, because it'll give you an idea of what you want to do, and it will also enhance, like if you go into blue team, it'll enhance what you're doing there. Really, the caveat that I mentioned later in ethical hacker is that you really get into it, right? So it's really going to define an ethical hacker. Okay, well, this is the technology, these are the problems, these are the tools that you use to perpetrate crime against that. Of course, you're a red team, so you're not trying to really perpetrate crime. You're just seeing if there's a weakness there. And these are the steps in doing it. And so at that level, it becomes like, are you a SQL expert? Are you a HTML expert? Are you? No, of course you're not. So you're going to, at that level, get into some things that really will stretch you. But again, the reasoning behind it is, do you have an interest in it? If you do, now you know. If you don't have an interest in it, that's just fine. You're going to go into blue team activities and really understand what could happen on a website, that kind of stuff. So let's see how it's broken down into the job market. So here's our job market, and you can see blue team is steady. The growth here is steady, and it's 50%, more than 50% of the jobs out there, as you can see. And I used a couple of AIs to actually get this information. So it's checking, right? There was an AI that was like, oh, it's just over 50, but the others were like, no, this is over 50%. And what are they doing? Well, they're actually out there like, let's look at Indeed, let's look at LinkedIn, let's look what kind of jobs do we have that describe themselves this way. So blue team is the most dominant portion. Red team is then the next. And on the other AIs, this one that I pulled this information from, right? This is 20%. It looks like it's equal 20 and 20, but really red team is about 30%. I need to, drag that over a little bit. So purple team is a slightly smaller. And then we have the ranges so you can understand, what the ranges are. The skill level for red and purple is higher. Purple usually has to be able to determine whether or not what's coming from red is valuable and what's coming from blue is valuable, and being able to synthesize that and produce something to protect the organization. And of course, the red team skills, as you're going to see an ethical hacker, that's another level of skill and another level of dedication. And so it's a little higher within those areas. And of course, this is just showing you, this is the average low. Here's the average within 5 years or so. So this is not showing you a top range on that. It's just showing you that this is, most jobs are between this and this. Anyway, I wanted you to see that so that you can understand as you move further into this, that you can gauge as you go through the information of what you're interested in and whether and what level you want to go to. And also to realize that most people that are in these areas started in blue team. You know, you start with protecting endpoints, and then you move on to something else, and then to something else. And then you make the switch over to red team. Unless you're just so super smart, you can go out there and get that ethical hacker certification. And then even then they'll probably stick you in blue team to make sure you know what you're doing. But that's a tough certification, right? That's a lot of information. So that is basically the gist of the cybersecurity market and the different job roles. And so I wanted you to know that up front in the beginning security class. So as we move forward into the others, you'll have an idea of how to categorize this, because I will use those categories. This is blue team information. This is red team information, so that you can put that into your mind, fit it in where you need it, and have that help you out with your decision process. Thanks for watching. We will talk with you later.